I was embarrassed by Obama going to Japan and apologizing to the Japanese people for our actions in World War II.
Obama's been there 8 years. He hasn't done anything. He's bringing more and more dangerous people in this country today, and I've been to the Middle East and I've lived in Europe.
What about living in Europe makes you uniquely qualified to say that immigration doesn't work?
I was married to an Islamic man. And I've been suffering for 8 years trying to divorce him as he gets with other women and makes more children and doesn't pay anything for child support.
But he is a billionaire, and if there's any way a woman is going to get money, I mean, you look at the NFL players, you look at the college players that are going to be an NFL player. Women, I know, women are going to be sometimes looking for an easy way to make money.
Well, just like Tucker Carlson said and President Trump said, that Putin is a genius, and he is a genius. He's playing the rest of the world chess where Biden is playing checkers.
Is it really genius, though, if Putin finds his troops overextended? I mean, they're already facing a lot more casualties than they thought.
Well, if you believe what you see and read all the time, you may be right or you may not be right. Putin could have put in his freshman forces out there versus his sophomores, JV or varsity. So
and that would be a genius thing to do?
It's a genius thing for him, the way he's taking control as a leader of the rest of Europe.
The war in Ukraine could have been avoided with having our own oil independence.
So you think there's more that you think if we had been independent in terms of energy, the war in Ukraine would not have happened?
I'm not going to say that. Could have been avoided with having our own oil independence.
It should come as a surprise to no one that the Let's Go Brandon crowd created shirts they can wear that hide their allegiance to Donald Trump.
I love that she thinks she's hiding her support for Trump. Like, you look at this woman and say, what party do you support with your sequined, tacky-ass American flag shirt? Using context clues here, but I think I'm probably right. And of course you support Trump, you conservative Barbie. That's not an insult, that's literally her name. Why are you making videos? Aren't you supposed to be at some supermarket trying to get thrown out for not wearing a mask? And like, as they're carrying you outside, you like lick the produce. Isn't that where you should be right now? But this is hilarious. For all the trash right-wingers talk about cancel culture, now they've started canceling themselves. That's what she's doing. What about that freedom of speech you said you support so much? All of a sudden, when your liberal friends come by, oh, normal people, bye. There is a growing contingent, apparently, of people who are only wearing Trump shirts when other Trump fans are around because they're ashamed. There's no other reason. This is a huge transition from how they used to be, putting Trump flags out their frickin' truck nut trucks. A, you don't have liberal friends. And B, if you do, they know you're a Trump supporter. Like, we use context clues.
He says the things that needs to be said.
About what? What's important to you?
The truth that nobody else says.
Proud Boys, stand back and stand by.
Shut down the government. We need the money to put up that wall. We need a wall that is high as hell and as dangerous as hell to cross. People die crossing that wall. Maybe they'll just stay on their side.
We're not going to take it anymore. I see a civil war coming. I do. I see civil war coming.
I can tell you right now, if they steal the election, all bets are off. How about civil war? Let's go for it.
Noam Chomsky has a dire warning for the United States as the Republican Party slides further right into authoritarianism. Hi, I'm Yasmin Khan here with Rebel HQ.
One of the lessons we should learn from 2021 is what is happening to the most powerful, wealthy state in world history. It's going off, literally going off the precipice. There was recently a study of attitudes of Republican voters on many issues, comparative study, comparing them with European parties. The results are pretty grim. They rank with parties like Alternative for Deutschland, the right-wing neo-fascist parties. It is one of the two major parties in the United States, the party that is very likely to take power next year and in 2024 because of various manipulations and shenanigans that they're carrying out. They won't win the vote, but they'll probably win the election.
In the study that Chomsky cited, the views of the current Republican Party were in alignment with very right-wing authoritarian foreign governments. Chomsky mentioned that the Republican Party would likely return to power in 2022 and 2024, but not necessarily because they had the votes. In 2021, 34 laws were passed restricting access to voting, while 262 bills were introduced in 41 states that would have interfered with elections. Texas, where I live, led the charge last year, with an impressive 59 voter-suppressive bills introduced. For comparison, Arizona had the second most, with 20. I always say that Texas is not as red as people think it is, but we're up against a lot.
If you take a look at the attitudes of Republican voters during the 4 Trump years, concern for global warming declined by about 20%. That's 4 years of propaganda. There are ominous signs of worship of a semi-deity. We're both old enough to remember that from somewhere else. Okay.
When you look at various conflicts and uprisings around the world, you tend to find a few common themes in regards to why it all happened in the first place. One of the most common themes that you run into is a minority ruling a majority. This can happen in various different ways, but one of the best ways it can happen is through voter suppression. Voter suppression ensures that the voices of the masses are stifled in one way or another, resulting in a government that simply does not represent the people. In a democracy, that's a huge problem. In an interview with Al Jazeera last week, Chomsky said, "The political system does not represent the population. Turns out, for a large majority of the population, by some studies up to 90%, there's essentially no correlation between people's attitudes and opinions and the votes of their own representatives. Their representatives are listening to different voices." With the gridlock in Congress, specifically with the unyielding Mitch McConnell at the helm of the Republican Party, it's easy to understand why people are frustrated on both sides of the aisle with their representation. It's disheartening, to say the least, to see bills and ideas and movements that are supported by the general public just be dismissed or gutted by the people who we elected to work on our behalf. It's fundamentally anti-democratic, and our representative republic is becoming more and more unrepresentative. Chomsky's main point, however, is that this imbalance of power is especially dangerous when it happens in, quote, the world-dominant power, history's most powerful state. We have the world's biggest military, and we have a habit of inserting ourselves in conflicts around the world. What happens if we give up the facade of justice and equality? But there's hope. The people, especially the younger generations, are less willing than older generations were to accept and support systems and governments and leaders that don't have their best interests at heart. They have a unique perspective and the advantage of seeing things as they are instead of being jaded by nostalgic ideas of what it once was.